brain sluice, slick with ectoplasmic juice.
Ecstatic energy, a fire that fuels our memory.
With genealogy, with spiritual topography.
Questions for your answers, we are data necromancers.
Small dog chopped in half attached to a bigger dog.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate seeing shit like that.
And it's like that Soviet Union era, like fucked up science, anything goes, like let's fucking attach this to that to see if we can make it live.
Where was that?
The Unexplained with William Shatner.
Come on, Shatman.
And then they like revel in this victory that the large dog can still drink water. And the way that it's drinking, they're like putting water in front of it and it's like barely alive. And the one on top is just like
dead. It's like not even.
For all intents and purposes, it's alive, but it's just like, it's so fucked. Like, why would you want to do that? What did you prove?
Have you met a human? They're just like.
But if that's what is documented, like what's undocumented? Oh boy, yeah. It hurts to think about, and that image I cannot clean from my mind's eye. So this is something that
welcome everybody.
Hey, I didn't even see you guys.
Hey.
One of my friends posted something about like how you envision things and what you see when you're like imagining things. And do you know, like, a lot of people don't see anything.
Stevie, remember when I brought that up?
And that
there's a name for it.
That's crazy.
They don't have they have a hard time like recalling people to, because there's no screen.
Does that mean that they don't, like, their consciousness doesn't associate with their vision that much? Like, what is that?
Let's have Stevie on the podcast. I also, when she told me that, I was like, wait, whoa, what?
But yeah, I was surprised because when I close my eyes and envision something, I can make a picture and I can change the picture.
Now imagine not having that.
Would something else that you do be amplified in that instance?
I don't know, right? Isn't
like they hear things and remember things they heard better, or they can like envision, or they can like imagine in a different way.
I immediately wanted to call every practitioner of the dark arts that I've ever met and be like, we have to fix you. Because
well, in some cases it's bad because like I can't, every time this image of these two dogs sewn together pops up in my mind's eye, I just like slam dunk it into the trash, but it still pops back out.
That's because that's called an intrusive thought. I have those all the time.
Oh yeah, I would say 80% of my thoughts are intrusive thoughts. Like, oh, I'm walking up another set of stairs again, better fall down and smash out all my teeth. Like, that's
intrusive thoughts, man. They really ramped up after pregnancy too. It was just like, oh, my newborn's decapitated and blood squirting everywhere.
Oh my God.
Just car wrecks with children screaming while they're hurt and you're pinned. It's like, life is a nightmare.
If you can't control those types of images or imaginings, like, to what extent do our expectations sort of like create our reality? And if you can't control like that dark stuff coming in, to what extent is that like creating your reality, or like allowing your reality to unfold? Like, not saying I'm gonna come across like a dog that's been sewn to another dog, but like,
you are giving it psychic energy though, you know. It's like it is.
Like what are the consequences of that?
You're gonna be the next serial killer.
The next serial killer. Speaking
of
cereal, I'm hungry.
You came here ripe. You can eat a bowl.
No, I'm not going to eat on the microphone.
It's so good.
I had some miso. I did like a Japanese breakfast. I did miso soup with some shit in it.
Soup ain't enough.
No, it wasn't.
Nope.
But I didn't eat more than that. So, what can you do?
Megan, you're gonna have to be my brain today.
I got some stuff.
Sick. Because I sent you a whole chapter yesterday, and now I'm like, I don't remember.
I wrote down a piece of it,
word
and I
from
did
it.
some research sort of beyond it, but not really. But there are things that I am prepared to say.
It's a book Lucas is reading, and he was like, man, isn't it fucked that our timeline of the Dark Ages comes from how many people were killed for their knowledge? And we've both read that in all over the world, where it was like the Catholic Church rose, and then they just started slaughtering anybody,
Suppress everything that's against it.
And then the real knowledge kind of went underground to some degree. And then I thought of you, and I was like, I need to send this to Megan.
Yeah, I was sitting there. At first, I was reading it on my phone,
Yeah,
and
tough.
my mom kept texting me, and I was like, okay, I'm going to read this on my computer. And then it was like big on my computer. I'm just like laying in my bed like, whoa. But at every turn, I was like, what are the primary sources for this information? What?
Yeah, you shouldn't read metaphysical books then, because rarely are they.
They don't
like,
cite sources.
That one doesn't. That one's really old. That one was written in like the 30s.
I'm so
too.
intrigued by what they're saying,
That you
but where
wanna
does it
know.
come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of metaphysical books. And Teresa's on. Maybe Teresa has a library. Libraries. I don't have any books. Robert Anton Wilson will sometimes cite his sources.
I would like to read one of his books.
But for the most part, they're not cited. And I also too would like to know more.
Don't you think like that lack of a sort of bolstering of their information that they posit sort of takes away some of their credibility?
Absolutely not. I just, it's so funny. That's where you and I differ, because I'm like, oh, this is the real shit, because it's like not coming from academia necessarily, but it would be really like, there's so much more I want to know.
Yeah.
But so many, to me, it's like when you're cultivating so many holistic versions of every thing together, I feel like that would be so much extra work to like cite. Okay, well, the Bhagavad Gita at this part and this part, and I just feel like a metaphysician doesn't give a fuck necessarily.
Yeah, it's interesting because there was another book you were reading, maybe the Mother Mantra book, when they talk about Constantine's reshaping of the Bible.
And I've heard that a lot too, but not ever from some delegated
Well, I researched
source.
it because that's my shit, and it's not true. Like, it was happening centuries before Constantine even took power, and his actual, like, what he was doing with the books of the Bible, like, there's no sources that state that that's true. So this is where I have, like, this, I'm like, well, this is really interesting stuff.
So no sources you could find on the internet.
Right, and then we go back to, like, this schism between metaphysical or supernatural thought and, like, what is called established sort of mainstream thought. It's like, these people think it all went down this way. These people are positing that it went down a completely different way.
This would be a perfect opportunity to start bringing guests on, because
Dr. Joshua Sledge.
so much shit that I try to Google is fucked. It is so fucked. I'm not getting anything I need brought to the surface anymore. A lot of it is SEO, you know.
Everything's a fucking ad.
And so it would be also fun, you know, in the alternate reality where you and I get to go do whatever we want. Let's go to the archives.
Field research.
You know, because I feel like there's just basic stuff too on Google, not even metaphysical stuff, that I'm like, okay, I know that this exists, but it is not on the first 3 pages.
Right.
So you're also being fed a very specific algorithm that's not getting you what you need.
Right.
And it would be fun to see if, like, okay, 800 people are saying this. Can we find anything that says this, or find like a college professor who's, because I feel like you and I could get a college professor on this podcast very easily.
For sure.
And maybe somebody who just
and the religious studies department at the University of Virginia is highly lauded, like internationally, as being like a very I almost said prolific.
Oh shit. I'm sorry.
Being like a highly influential and like well researched and well peopled sort of.
So you're saying we could like contact them, or that their library? Okay.
I think we could. I think that would be really fun. I don't know if any of the people that I worked with when I was a student there are still there, but that would be really cool.
Yeah, because I feel like so many of, if we talk about metaphysical stuff, Teresa brings up how Carl Jung is academic and cites sources. How many of that shit is just so fucking buried at this point?
Yeah, and I would also say, like, just because you cite a source, especially like if you use the example of Wikipedia, you click on the source and you go look at it, it's just a link to bullshit. So even like the practice of supplying your bibliography does not make you right or wrong, you know, because it's like, well, what are you sorting? Like, what are you reading? Like, that's bullshit too, you know?
Especially when we're talking about stuff that happened so long ago.
That's my problem. It's all conjecture. It seems like a really long game of telephone. So of course we'll never be able to get at the truth of it, but sort of just like glimpses of what could have been. Like all the talk about Atlantis, like that's fucking dope as shit. What are there any surviving records?
Plato talks about it, and he's not citing shit. Because he used to go, so Plato used to go travel to Egypt and learn. That's like what you used to do, is you'd go make a pilgrimage and learn from the teachers in Egypt. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's all that he said. And that's where Atlantis, that's like the oldest source of somebody talking about it, is Plato, and he learned it from the Egyptian teachers that he went to go see. So yeah, I mean, Plato also believed that you couldn't trust your senses, and that behind every form there's like the archetypal, you know, like quintessential spirit form of it in some other realm. That sounds true to me.
But that would be like, so if you're walking around and you see a horse, that would be like, oh, the spirit horse existed before the
babe, you are talking about alchemy. It is do not trust your sight. And it's crazy because all the Paul Selig books I've read like 8 of them, it's all talking about scrubbing off, you imprinting what you know as a horse. Because you'll never reach enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it, or alchemical philosopher's stone, turning stuff into gold, if you constantly imprint what you think you know. It's like clinging onto something. Yeah, which you're like, okay, the chair is there. It's so fucking, but I get a boner trying to like.
No, yeah, you're like intrigued
I don't know what that means.
Trusting your senses, but I am confused because it's all I have to experience the world.
Yeah.
Are my senses.
I know, right? And it's I've been watching Werner Herzog's The Wheel of Time.
Werner Herzog. I wish I could Lucas can do an impersonation.
Lucas can do it really well. But their whole The Wheel of Time is documenting the Dalai Lama and parts of like Western Tibet and like the pilgrimage that people make. And they're showing them making a mandala in sand. And the mandala is essentially a roadmap to the inner workings in the Dalai. Like, Werner tries to interview the Dalai Lama about what this mandala represents. And he's like, look, we try to manifest what we can in 3-dimensional reality, and it's a blueprint for what's inside of us, but we can't really talk about, like, it's just hard to describe. And then, like, later that night, I had a dream about being inside the fucking wheel of life in the mandala, and I was being shown what every grain of sand represented. And the mandala is sick as fuck. It is like, it does look like a blueprint. Like, it looks like a motherboard or something.
Yeah.
It's weird. You know, and they've been doing this for however many centuries, 1 billion centuries. Where was I going with this? It's so hard. Just
Blueprint, mandala. You
Blueprint,
can't
mandala.
really speak about reality with our words and concepts because we're limited.
Oh, but they're also, all factions of Buddhism, I'm making a sweeping generalization right now, but it's all to
Noted.
remove
Acknowledged.
what your senses. There's a tattoo I want to get of, I believe it's Tibetan bowl offerings of the senses. You offer your senses to the great beyond. You say, I don't need them. So it's like a bowl with like a foot to represent touch, your brain, your heart, your eyes for sight. I don't need these, take them. Because all of this is a fucking dream.
Yeah.
And that shit, like, yeah.
That's what keeps popping up for me, too. It's like everything's a hallucination. Reality is a hallucination. Like, even when we talk about, like, how some people can't use their mind's eye to imagine things, everyone's experience of reality is so vastly different. And it's like tiny, inconsequential things that we can agree on. Like, that chair's green. Like, oh, big fucking deal. We both see the chair is green, but that doesn't mean that we know anything about what it is.
Well, and that's what got me so into quantum physics when I was in high school, because the nature of reality started to really disintegrate on a quantum level. Like, wait a second, this isn't acting the way we supposed it would, or
like it's unpredictable?
It's unpredictable. It's not acting the way we thought it was. It does on this level, on a particle level, but on a God damn it, I should have brought my quantum entanglement notes, because the entanglement was what really sent scientists off about the subatomic particle behaviors and how separating them and moving one halfway across the world and stimulating one half made the other half, you know, like, what does that say about consciousness, and what does that say about our nature
what is
of reality?
that called when the reaction is not related to the distance away? Like instantaneous, like you do something to this one
Why
and
do we have to talk about it on today's pod?
We're always doing our best.
I know. Today we're doing our best.
Yeah, that instantaneous action across vast distances is baffling, because what is the connection if it's not related to time and space, or it's not affected by time and space? Like everything else that we experience is within the realm of time and space, except like those psychic phenomena like deja vu. Like that seems to be unhitched from time and space, because it's like, I feel like this is really familiar to me and I've seen this exact thing before, but how could that be possible if it's just happening right now?
Yeah, and you look at all the theories, like they're like, well, here's what it could be. It could be that the neuron is firing, like they called it, like a synaptic echo. And I'm always like, okay, that doesn't explain why that happens and why it happens so infrequently, you know, or whatever. It's like you slap that on it and you go, you lift your hands up from the wheel and you go, oh, that's probably what it is. And you're like, yes, but the cool answer lies within the answer you gave me. You know, it's like, we write it off and then the mystique is scrubbed from it. And you're like, no. Like the happenstance, the coincidence. Oh, it's just this. Like, okay, let's talk about that. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure. It makes me think of, also from The Unexplained, the twin, like identical twins, and how they did an experiment of like separating them and like doing something to one of them and then measuring to see if the other one experienced anything as a result of that experience. And I think it was like 8%. They did, feel whatever this person was experiencing. And that sort of psychic connection is freaky and difficult to explain too, because it's atemporal, or like it's not spatial, and it's like, what does it have to do with them being from the same zygote, or whatever being an identical twin means? What is the nature of consciousness? Where does it come from? And
where does it go?
Is it doing?
I can't wait for us to really crack open quantum computing, because I feel like the next leap lies beyond us utilizing a tool that we don't quite understand yet for purposes we don't know about yet. Like, I've got popcorn ready. Like, I just want to know, can we move beyond what we know and what we don't know, and the oppression of systematic squashy religion to unearth? Like, part of that chapter that I sent you, and the book is called Finding the Third Eye. Shout out Hannah for mailing that to me. She talks about, before this, and the organized society and the organized religion, and you just experienced what you were experiencing, and there was no...
It wasn't like, no, this is what reality is. You didn't have to believe that there was, a goddess in the water. Like, that was your experience. That was what you felt.
In societies that are still ritualistic and tribal, they're like, oh yeah, you need to go see that lady. They don't go, whatever. It's like a lot of people commented on my ghost video talking about how I started my whole journey. People were like, yeah, I remember this as a kid, and then I just suppressed it or repressed it. Repressed? If they're actively trying to...
Yeah, I think you repress a memory.
They're repressing those memories because it was scary, and they didn't know, and no adult was going to believe them. Where, like, my metaphysical teacher, Sarah, grew up in a Hispanic household. So they were like, oh, shit, Grandma came? What time? Like, they were like, when you foster it, look at Sarah, who's like constantly nailing shit and pulling stuff out of the ether and teaching others all the time. And I'm like, man, like, same with Ruby. We were making muffins the other morning, got up early as fuck, made muffins. She's stirring the muffins, and she's like, my Grandpa Tim used to live in California when he was a little boy, but he wasn't little, but it was before he got sick. And I was like, what did you just say? Like, it had been 5 minutes of me waking up. We weren't talking. It was the first thing out of her mouth. Did he just barf? Is that truth barf coming out of him? Enough with the truth barf.
Came out. I think he just had a burp, maybe.
Yeah, he
smells like a dirty Cheeto.
He's been designed improperly.
Because of people.
Anyways, my dad went to move to California when he was a teenager. I've never, ever once mentioned that to Ruby. Ruby spends no time with any family, so
except her grandpa Tim.
Except for clearly, and I'm
ghost
just like,
grandpa.
Cool, let's foster this, because what happens if your kid comes to you and you foster it, and you're like, okay, stay with that skill.
But what if it becomes like a Sixth Sense scenario where she can't have peace because they're everywhere?
Sarah has found peace, and they are everywhere. I'm at the park sometimes getting hit up.
Yeah.
I don't know if Magic's on here. I don't think he is, but Magic was like, I want to go ghost hunting. And I was like, you walk outside. Walk outside. I mean, it's seriously everywhere all the time. It's not
And I know that you've said, like, if they're bad or if they're doing something you don't like, you just, like, firmly state that they need to go away or they need to stop or you won't be fucked with. And you have to, like, assert your sort of power in that realm, and that's how you stay away from getting possessed or whatever freaky shit happens to people when they're not powerful enough to, and they dabble. Because, like, aren't there many examples of people who have, like, weak psychic power and they sort of get ridden by
what was crazy?
Forces or spirits or demons or whatever?
When The Exorcist came out, that movie, and before that movie, so in the 70s, there were, like, there's a couple really cool cases where the police were there, firemen were there, like, there's people there going, get the fuck out of this house, we call the priest. There's a really cool I think it was in New Jersey. Yeah, and they called the cops because they didn't know what to do because shit was flying all over the place. So the cops come in.
Cops don't do anything about that.
Cops came in.
Shoot all this stuff.
All they did was, like, validate. And then they were like, don't call us. And then the people who own the house were like, who the fuck did we call? And they're like,
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to call the priest. And then the priest came over. And then the fire truck showed up, and there's news footage of this fireman going, like, I'm never going in there. Like, I can't. And he's like putting his axe down. He's like, I don't know what the fuck is going on in there. It's so funny.
It's so cool.
Where was I going?
Phenomena that are not of our tangible realm.
Speaking of tangible realms, everything is just out of reach today. I need to be one with the potato.
I am potato. I am the potato. Just take a minute to recenter your fucking compass way. My compass.
Oh, you were talking about possession. I was like, man, there's a lot of people kind of getting a lot of cases, a lot of documented, validated cases of people becoming possessed. And I was like, well, there wasn't cell phones. Everybody had one TV that they had to share. There was, like, a little bit less infiltration of media happening, so maybe your senses...
So you're saying they're doing it for attention?
I was just thinking that they're, like, a little bit more open because they're not, like...
susceptible, yeah.
Distracted constantly all the time, jerking off just on the computer.
Unless they are, like, you know, standing at a fence looking through a hole, like watching some lady.
Most people are, we're probably still jerking it.
People will find a way to jerk it. They will find
R.I.P.
half-naked people and watch them and jerk it.
Paul Rubens. I still don't understand what happened. Like, why did... He got busted for jerking it in a movie theater.
In a porn movie theater, right?
I thought that's what you do.
I don't know.
But
I guess it was
so
scandalous because he works with children, and it's like,
and he doesn't have a wiener.
That he masturbates, that's disgusting. It's like, what the fuck? If you have kids and then you had sex and you know that we all have sex.
The Holy Ghost is sandwiched in between you and your lover. And if you came on top, then you're the devil.
Yeah, if the lady was on top, then your baby's gonna
never get
be
over
a
that.
Demon.
You have told me some shit that just, like,
dude, the Lilith stuff is crazy.
Nuclear bombed my brain. But the first lesson in metaphysics is to remove all fear. Because 99.99% of everything you encounter is not evil. And Sarah's like, in the thousands of studies and instances I've encountered spirits, one time I saw something that I needed to stay away from. You know, she's like, it's such a rare occurrence.
I'm intrigued.
She's intrigued, ladies.
What was that one thing? Was it a goat man?
Half goat, half man.
Dude,
you know what we should do? We should make curry out of him.
We will cook you. No, I don't eat humans. He's half human. Yeah, I'm always interested to hear about all of the esoteric, all of the...
You know, what was so much fun? I went to my in-person class and there was only like 5 of us. on Saturday night. And we did more hands-on stuff, which we normally don't. We usually, like the last class, we did pendulum work, which I don't, like, fuck with pendulums that much. But this time we, like, all were touching each other, holding hands. Mm-hmm. And she had two of the strongest people on the ends. So one is, like, an older guy. His name is Ted. He's, like, a shamanic person. And then Dee Dee was on the end, and Dee Dee is an animal communicator. And she's really cool. She's native. Just like
to this area?
To America. She's a Native American.
Whoa.
And so I was holding Dee Dee's hand, and we were practicing, like, sending energy certain ways. And it was so funny to, when you're in it and you're practicing it with people, with other people, Sarah would call out, like, okay, so let me start from the beginning, because this is obviously, like, pretty weird and esoteric. So I'm holding Dee Dee's hand, and I'm holding Edna's hand. And so Dee Dee has to think of a color, and then I have to keep my mind open and not imprint what I would assume.
Was it blue?
The color that she's thinking of. I'm trying to practice being an open, like, channel for energy. A conduit. And I'm trying to mentally send the energy or the information to Edna, but I feel like a blockage.
On Edna.
I was like, this is weird, because I don't ever get to practice this stuff with other people. Yeah. Sarah out loud says, Edna, stop. And so it's so crazy when I'm feeling something, and we're all just sitting there with our eyes closed or whatever, just, like, fucking around and finding out. And I can just feel something. I don't make a grimace. I don't say anything. I'm just like, oh, this is weird. Kind of feels like blocked energy or something. And then for Sarah to, like, tell her to stop.
So what does Edna do in that point? How does Edna become a better conduit or receiver?
She was like, there's a lot of people who are like, I don't know what I'm doing. And we're all like, yes, none of us know what we're doing, but we are trying to practice our skills better. Mm-hmm. And it's a fun thing to do on a Saturday night with, with a bunch of other people. But she did let go, and the message did go through. And I felt it go through.
Was it blue?
No, it was not blue. But
you're not going to tell me what color it was?
It was red. But it was, like, funny because Sarah was like, nobody's saying anything. She's like, God damn it, everybody's got a different color. Stop. She's like, everybody say your colors. And Dee Dee's like, red. And I was like, oh, I got pink. And then Edna's like, I got purple. And then, like, the next one's like, I got green. It is like, Sarah was right, you know, and she's...
How do you instruct people how to do that better?
To clear your mind. I mean, that's why, like, the basis of practicing is meditation. Clearing your mind. And, you know, the scientists that have studied, so I was watching a documentary about channelers being hooked up to MRIs, and then what's the one with just, like, all the electrodes that are on their skull? And they've noticed, they're like, okay, the brain typically vibrates or gives off 10 hertz. We've noticed with channelers they're at 11 hertz, which is
that a reference to Spinal Tap?
Yes, which is like 0.1% of the human population, you know. And so it's kind of cool. And they showed, like, what parts of their brain are disconnected more so than a regular, or their baseline rather. Like, even on their baseline, they're.
I hear this often. That, like, you know, human beings only use so much of their brain capability, and, like, the psychic ability is, like, latent in everyone, but not everyone can access it the same way.
Everybody can access it. I guarantee you, if we sat down Magic Toaster and started him on a path of meditation and clearing his mind, I guarantee you could get a regular person a year, maybe 2 years of like consistent discipline and practice to be able to get them. I mean, you pick up on when people call you or when they're about to text you. I mean, and you're not even trying.
But I feel like that is sort of like, it has something to do with time being an illusion, you know?
That's part of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not saying I don't believe in the power, potency, efficacy of like psychic abilities, but I feel like it's zooming in on a tiny piece of whatever the grand truth is.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's detrimental to focus on a tiny piece, but I think that it's just not, it's not enough to like explain what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, and
here.
I think we're so far from being able to explain it.
And I think that it being related to like spooky stuff or like associated with like woo-woo stuff is like, well, that's just not right. Like, that's not fair. And it's totally like diminishing the importance of it. And even though I can't explain how it's connected with everything else, I know that it is. And I just think that the people who take this stuff seriously, I don't know how to give them more credibility, which I think they deserve.
Yeah, it's like you're scrubbing off how many decades of fucking horror movies and Ouija boards and and ghost shows and just like all the stuff that
and
really
also
does.
its associations in Christianity and like the predominant belief that anything that's not, you know, scriptural or from the church is evil.
But it was so chill for Moses to receive a message, and it was so chill to get a message from a burning bush, and that's fine.
Whenever a man gets a spiritual intervention, he's like divinely inspired. But if a woman gets it, you better fucking burn her up because she's a witch.
Yeah, because how dare you? Ooh, I just found a good book. I wonder if it's still on my history. And I was like, ooh, MAWPOD book club.
Oh, I need another book to read. I just picked up my Roshi Philip Kapleau Zen book. Been reading my Zen book again.
How does that feel? We should go to Zazen.
Yeah, it's about the practice of Zazen and like the different schools of thought and approaches and what you need to do to practice Zazen and like the 4 different goals of practicing Zazen. It's nice. It's refreshing.
The book is called Women of the Golden Dawn.
Oh.
Rebels and Priestesses.
Let's go.
I was like, swing. Did someone say rebels and priestesses?
Did someone say Golden Dawn? That's like the what is the Golden Dawn? The Order of the Golden Dawn.
Yeah,
Masonic
occult teachings and practices. No women allowed. There were women that were.
There always are.
That was one of the always the underground railroads for secret knowledge that was essentially squashed by the Catholic Church. Hannah, will you join us in our MAWPOD book club?
Hannah, dame un besito bien suavecito.
It was crazy. We recently went to a birthday party last weekend. And
was it my birthday?
It was your birthday.
Oh wait, it was Dean's birthday. Was it Dean's birthday?
No, it was
you guys got mad birthdays.
Dude, have you ever met a little kid? Birthdays are like fucking
music festivals.
Yes. Yes. Like it is the coming of Christ. It is, and I get it because you get goodie bags.
There's activities planned.
There's kids screaming. There's cake. There's juice boxes. But it was really cool because the guy who did this tattoo, Ray, he's the one that got me in touch with Sarah, and he's also communicated with his dad. in dreams and stuff. So we were really vibing on that. And he's an ultra spiritual person. Doesn't like to talk about it though. You know, it's like
very personal.
one of the real ones, right?
Personal
Where they're
practice.
just like, nah.
What is it? Gao?
Meh. Jiao.
Jiao.
But I went to their house and you walk in, the whole living room's an altar.
Yeah. What's on the altar?
Oh my God. What isn't on the altar? You know,
Is that
he's
where
got-
he keeps his guru?
That's where he has, there's a big skull. And I was like,
Gigantic skull. Skull of a whale.
when I sat down, you know, during the lull of the party, because I was like talking to his mom, and his mom's from Indonesia, and she's like such a super sweet woman and cooked all the food, and it was like a party.
Yeah.
But suddenly I was like, ooh, this altar is hella loud.
Oh shit.
So loud. And what's coming through in the altar is very different from anything else I've expected. Like, I'm trying to work on my plant shit because I'm not connected to plants very much, but I try. But plants are like really subtle and quiet and kind of like an animal, like a little dog or something. Whereas like the altar was like, hey, hi. And you're like, ah!
Like the trickster?
Just really in your face. Obnoxious.
Yeah.
And I was excited. I was going to see Sarah right after the party. So I was, and she knows Ray. So I was really excited to like have somebody to talk about this without judgment or scrutiny. And I talked to Sarah. I was like, Sarah, Ray's altar. She's like really obnoxious in your face and loud. She's like, don't even get me started. And she like goes off, and she would talk about how they shared like an office space or something years and years ago downtown. And she said Ray used to do a horn, not ceremony, but similar every night at 10 p.m. or whatever. And she was like, you would see all of the guides and the Tibetan, the Hindu spirits, like she's like, and they're weird, they're naked, they're old, they're floating. She was like, it was so hard for me to do healing over there because something would always just be like,
He was like blowing a horn so they would all come.
I don't know,
or like
any,
get aroused or like get busy. Like,
I don't know what the
what are
horn
you summoning them to do when you blow a horn?
I'm sure. I mean, it's so cool watching Werner Herzog's Wheel of Time because it's like these people are devout. I mean, they've dedicated their whole life.
But I think that's just it. Like the power of belief.
Yes.
It makes things manifest in reality.
Exactly. Well, yeah, they've done there's that study about patients who are prayed for versus patients that weren't prayed for, and how ones that were prayed for healed 50% faster.
I think that's huge, and I've always believed that the power of your thoughts is like an efficacious way to approach reality. But it can't be the only way you approach reality.
I was wondering if all of these, and I'm not veiled by a bunch of people practicing religion. I don't think that they're any more holy. I don't think what they're doing is necessary. But if you are getting 8,000 people together to sit and meditate, I'm like, okay, well, they're probably maybe keeping World War III from happening like a little bit. I don't know.
I always wonder, like the people who pray all the time,
they
what
did
do
not
they pray for?
Full Metal. They were not known that they were prayed for. I believe that was part of the placebo.
What does everybody pray for? I prayed yesterday before I went to bed.
Did you pray for really delicious macaroni and cheese?
No. I think I did the Catholic thing where you like kneel on the side of your bed and pray, because that's like my prayer sort of infrastructure consists of. And I was just like, peace and love.
Good night. Pumpkin
Rest.
spice Pop-Tarts.
People who are tired will get rest, and people who are upset will find peace, and everybody will feel love. Thank you. Go to bed. But like, is that such a diluted, not diluted, but diluted sort of wish that it just kind of dissipates when you send it out.
Sprinkles.
It's like, well, here's a really indirect
Vague.
and vague kind of sprinkling of, you know, I hope everything's okay, kind of bland. Like, do I need to have like specific force? Do I need to get a prayer group together? Because another episode of The Unexplained was prayer, and
I like how you're just binging shit.
I did. When I want to watch TV, I just watch TV. But it was like Israel was in a drought for like 5 years, and then they all fucking prayed.
Yeah, they were all like, we're gonna die, so.
And then, you know, the skeptic in me is like, well, it was gonna rain eventually, right? But weren't they praying the whole time too? But then, like, when you look at a Jewish person who's highly orthodox who's praying, they get like that leather strap around their arm that leads from their heart, and they put one on. They have like a box on their head, and it's like connecting their heart with their hands and their head, and they're like praying. They're like acknowledging this this physical power that they have within them to like enforce their prayer. And I think that's like, holy shit, to an extent. Like the Jewish tradition is like very technical and like very like physically specific, because like the beards and like the yarmulkes and like everything is prescribed, and you have to behave this specific way to enact a specific outcome. And I think that specificity of ritual makes it even more powerful. It's like, well, no, you have to get like this kind of chicken. You have to hold it by its neck and shake it in front of the person while the water is right there and the fire's right there, and you're also spitting whiskey at them. Like, that's the only way this is going to work. And then that, if you can achieve that level of specificity, it like supercharges your prayer. What is that?
Electromagnetism. That's the only thing
It's
I'm
gotta be
thinking
some
of.
kind of concentration of power, this like latent power that we have, concentrated by the power of your belief.
Well, I think about like the electromagnetic energy that your brain gives off and your heart gives off, and how powerful they can be. But it's so hard. It's like, how do you quantify the shit that you can't, that isn't based in the third dimension? I have no fucking idea. I don't even know where you would start. And like me, I have no motivation to prove anything to anybody. Like,
yeah. And
whatever.
that's why metaphysical authors don't fucking list references. It's like, I don't fucking care if you believe me.
Because it's like, when you have profound experiences, the last thing you care about are skeptics. To me.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
But what is it? I can't stop thinking about electromagnetism, or how powerful our minds really are, or all the cases you read of manifestation. Jim Carrey talks about it at every fucking college procession or college graduation that he's ever
He got
been
rebuffed so many times.
What does that mean?
He would go and do a show and he would get booed off the stage.
Yes,
and
yeah.
he would
He
like
never stopped.
apply or audition for stuff and get like, no, we don't want that. No, we don't want that. We don't want you. Like, your shtick is not good. But he never stopped.
Never stopped.
So I think there's something with the coupling of that belief that he was manifesting his check, but he also was persistent to a point of being psychotic.
That discipline is almost necessary.
Right. Absolutely.
Because it is almost a form of ritual, right? You're like, if I want XYZ to happen, I have to do this.
You have to keep trying to get it. You have to keep trying to do it. So that makes a lot of sense.
I keep thinking about like grabbing one of the chickens at LEA and then like spitting whiskey on it. Trying to summon.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like the Loa, like the I guess it can be referred to as voodoo in like common parlance, but it's like the West African religions that came over to the Caribbean and were translated in different ways. and how like the Orisha, like the different deities of that tradition, they like specific things on their altars, and especially Elegba or Legba, like the granddaddy, or is it Legba? Well, he likes whiskey.
Or is it Ligma?
He likes Ligma nuts, Ligma balls.
Had to put a ball joke in there.
We need to talk about balls sometime. But I don't know. I just think there's something about the specificity of it, and how if I'm paying homage to my ancestors, I'll put up something that I know they're gonna like fucking tuna casserole.
Well, in Japan, you put out sake.
Right.
And I was like, it makes sense that spirits want to drink.
Spirits. I get it. Speaking of my ancestors, I was looking at my family tree, just like sort of vibing and like zooming in and zooming out and like acknowledging all the mothers that were there. And so my mother's name is Marion, and my dad's mother's name is Charlotte. And then I went through and I was like, okay, Charlotte's mother's name is Lottie Lee. And then my dad's mother's name is Ida Bell. So I have Marion, Charlotte, Lottie Lee, Ida Bell. And then on my mom's side, I have Estelle and Mary. And then I went up another notch and I was like, their mother's names are Coralie, Anna, Tommy, Martha, Caroline, Jessie, Lillian, Minnie. So I have all those mothers too. And then their mothers are Tamar, Ruth, Mary Jane, Marianne, Melinda, and Susan. And that's like third or fourth grandmothers. But there's so many women behind me. I mean, equal numbers of men. But still, it's like, it feels like sort of invigorating to call them by their names and like acknowledge their existence.
I woke up thinking about how I'm like, yeah, just another American who's been totally ripped from whatever heritage.
Yeah.
Like, how many people are completely fractured from such a big part of who they are.
Absolutely.
And how helpful it would be
to reconnect.
Just to know.
What would happen if we reconnected with our roots? Like, I followed my mom's dad's line as far back as I could, and I found where he emigrated from Wales to Massachusetts.
You're lucky that you've got all that. That's
It's
like
insane.
So much information.
This was mid 17th century when he came over to Massachusetts, and he landed in a place called Attleboro, which was 37 miles inland from Plymouth Rock, where the Pilgrims first landed. So like that, like less than 40 miles away from that first point of, you know, American colonial contact or whatever. I was looking at maps of Attleboro, Massachusetts, and there's like a park named after this family. It's called Capron Park. There's like a house where they historically lived. And of course, like, I am not the only product of the Caprons. Like, they are manifest. They're everywhere.
But it's still part of it.
But it's still like part of my connection to the past.
I remember biking in Vermont, coming across a historic house, and it was called the Chase House. And I remember that my dad's mom's dad's last name was Chase. So I texted my Aunt Teresa, and she was like, yeah, that's probably the same.
That's our family house, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, that's such a common, it's
right,
just so,
right.
It's so big.
And thousands of people can lay claim to that sort of branch because they were so prolific. And like, all these people had like 8 siblings on the family tree.
Oh yeah, you had to pop them out.
There was Thankful Capron, Mercy Capron, Comfort Capron. They had crazy names. There was Inez, Otto, Forrest, Jeanette, Philo, and Philancy.
I had a Celestial Silence.
What?
Yeah. That, I believe, Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're still on, that was Lydia Hazelmeyer's son, was Celestial Silence.
I didn't know you had a Lydia Hazelmeyer. That's dope.
Mm-hmm. I didn't really think about it either until Teresa was like, are you naming her after the spiritualist in our family? And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot.
That's so cool. Yeah, I want to know. I was talking to my mom about the Caprins, and she wanted to know like what religion they were. And I was like, well, Mom, if they were in Attleboro, Massachusetts in, 1660, they're fucking Puritans, But more specifically, I think it's called First Congregation or something like that. But it's definitely like Protestant, scriptural, whatever, all that stuff. I love it. I love reading about it. I love looking at it.
It makes me want to dive into mine because I don't know.
Yeah, my mom's side, the main historical city was Attleboro, Massachusetts. That's like where the Caprins descended from.
Do you want to go to that park and go to that house?
Yeah.
It's sick that there's a house that you could go visit.
I think that'd be really cool. But on my dad's side, Wheeling, West Virginia was really important. And if you look at where Wheeling is on the map of West Virginia is sort of shaped like a tadpole, kind of. And then there's this little like beep, upwards in between Pennsylvania and Ohio, and that's where Wheeling is. So it's like this big, it took a while for it to become a state. For a long time it was like Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia was all one big thing along the Ohio River. But I think it'd be super cool to do like a family lineage road trip.
Yeah, there's Lydia, I think, is born in Ohio, or buried.
That would be so cool.
Opposite of born.
Born unto death.
Oh, yes.
BORNE.
Born until the great threshold.
Born unto the great beyond. Do we have to cut, or can I talk about Theosophy?
Talk about Theosophy.
Okay. So the book that you sent me pages of, I looked up the author, and so that led me to be reading about Theosophy. So Theosophy, combining mysticism and spiritualism with heavy influences from Buddhist and Hindu thought. So the three objects of the Theosophical Society in America are to form a nucleus of the universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color, to encourage the comparative study of religion, philosophy, and science, and to investigate unexplained laws of nature and the powers latent in humanity. I'd say that's a pretty succinct way to describe your approach to life, because it's like holistic in that it sort of lumps all of these kind of inquiring systems like philosophy, religion, and science. Like all three are just trying to get to know reality better. And I think that's an important way to describe what it is that you do. Have you ever read about Theosophy?
I have some theosophical books and am familiar with practitioners of Theosophy, but it's something that I picked up and kind of put down a while ago.
Yeah, because there's no like dire need to be described as specific.
I like it when you describe me though, because you're like, oh yeah, that's right.
This is what Whitney does. And I think it sounds really smart to me. Like investigating the unexplained laws of nature and powers latent in humanity. Like, yeah, fuck yeah. Why would we not investigate that shit?
I found out too. Hold on, let me look. Just to make sure I'm.
And they also have like volunteer work.
I lived 5 blocks away from the Theosophical Society of Baltimore.
What? That's nuts.
It says it's located in the 7-Eleven.
Dude, we could get Slurpees and
my gosh,
inquire into the nature of reality.
Look, I used to walk down this street all the time.
Whoa. Google Street View, gotta love it. What's that? Obelisk?
It's it's an obelisk replicant of George Washington's inner.
Wait, how to decommission all these replicants? I don't know if it's right.
Lucas just pulled out a Madame Blavatsky book.
Oh yeah, I would like to read some of her stuff.
Hannah said that 7-Eleven was where the Ouija board was invented. Hannah, could you elaborate?
It was part of a Slurpee promotion. It was like, get in touch with your deceased ancestors, buy a Slurpee, and get a free Ouija board.
I suddenly want a fucking Slurpee.
Dude, me too. So I have a question for you, Whitney.
Yes, babe.
Would you say your religion is ancient
Cafeteria
wisdom?
pluralism.
No, that's mine. My religion is cafeteria pluralism. Is yours ancient wisdom?
Now, when you say religion, what does that mean to me?
What's the definition of religion?
Like something I wear, stab on my forehead, and
I guess it would be your pervasive, persistent
quest
sort of
for
like belief system that explains all the goings on.
teat that I suckle on.
Teat that you suckle upon.
Ancient wisdom.
Ancient wisdom.
100%.
What is your main conveyor belt for ancient wisdom? How do you access it? Carefully.
Oh, we gotta turn the cameras off.
Oh shit. We're scratching the surface.
How do I what?
How do you access ancient wisdom?
Access ancient wisdom.
Is it ineffable and it's just something that you feel, or can it be quantified?
I love watching stuff about it, reading. All of the books on my nightstand are just fucked.
Yeah.
Like, they're just so fucked full of that stuff. It's all I think about. And I was wondering too, I was like, why does the Buddhist stuff resonate with me? Because I never had any influence like that whatsoever growing up. I can't even tell you how I came across it. I have no idea. But I do know that it has always resonated very deeply with me, and I don't know why.
Which type of Buddhism?
That's a good question. I've been meaning to look into all the different sectors because
I've been interested in Buddhism since high school, and I don't know where I got it either.
Yeah, it's like I went to Catholic high school, so I wasn't there. I don't fucking know. I remember the first year I moved to Austin, so that was in 2014. I was rocked by a Yogananda documentary that I watched.
Oh.
And I think everything he said and spoke about, I was like, wait, life can have meaning and you can sit with other people and hash out its meaning. And then I found out that there was a Yogananda church on the east side.
Oh,
or not
yeah.
a church, but just
Like a temple? Or
a temple. And I went there and I was like, whoa, hi, hello, everybody. This is so cool that this...
It always seems like such a cool alternative to Catholicism.
Yeah, it's because we're humans, we like meaning. It's gets our dicks hard and it's something to chew on. I have a brain that is hungry and it needs to chew on something all the time and it never stops. Mm-hmm. And life was harder when I didn't have the meditation practice or the spiritual practice. I struggled a lot more with anxiety and depression. And I was building computers and working on motorcycles, but I wasn't happy. Mm-hmm. It gave me something to do and some like manna to feed my brain, but it wasn't the same as like
having faith.
it was just so much good food to eat for my brain. Like it just really really helped the anxiety, really helped the depression, gave fruit to all the strange experiences I had. So
yeah,
I guess they call it the awakening.
A sort of holistic way to integrate all the things that had ever happened to you.
Teresa says it just shows up. Whatever you're interested in just shows up. Yeah, and you don't know you're interested in it until
you're like reading about it at midnight. And you're like, I can't go to sleep. I just want to look this up some more.
Yeah, it feeds your soul. It fed my soul. And like I was cramming that with a lot of other things that I thought were interesting, but it wasn't the same. No, it definitely wasn't the same. And that's our show, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Taco Bell and then 7-Eleven.
Dude, it's so funny. Yesterday, Ruby was like, I miss Taco Bell! And I was like, what? But I remembered in the first trimester, I was like on the Taco Bell train. And then I haven't been on it since then.
Oh.
Speaking of feeding your soul, you know what I'm saying?
I need some actual food in my body.
I hate leaving it on that question, but we do have to go now.
I thought you answered it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love your pontifications.
I love you and whatever falls out of your face.
Do you have any closing thoughts, closing arguments?
This episode was brought to you by ibuprofen.
And water.
Don't forget to take care
water.
of your physical body today. Namaste.
Time to go to 7 Bell.